as a way of, number one, getting people to go on and set it up and get familiar with it, but also to make sure they put an emergency contact in. And she says someone out of the area, because we're in a hurricane, just like you're in a hurricane zone or whatever you want to call it. If you tell somebody that, oh, you need somebody as an emergency contact outside of our area in case we lose power, there's no cell service, during a hurricane, somebody will be able to reach that person in New York or whatever, So hopefully she hopes that by doing that, she gets people to actually go on, check the stuff and do it. Now, whether they do or not, we can't make anybody do anything, but I thought that was a pretty nifty little tool, to get somebody to think, oh yeah, I better do that. I better go on and check it, I don't know.
Well, that's a great idea because, and it's not just people in a hurricane zone. I mean, think about it. You have wildfires in California, Colorado. You have tornadoes in the Midwest, and you have superstorms up on the, nor'easters that impact the upper North Atlantic states. So there's hardly an area of the country where there can't be some type of a disaster that will take down your cell service. And that's when you want someone who finds your animal to be able to reach someone in another area where the cell service may be intact. Mm-hmm. And then you'll be able to get the good news from that person, your relative, that your animal is safe.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah, I thought it was. I really liked it because I know if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're right. I better add somebody, somebody out of our area. I thought that was a really smart idea.
Well, so I just think it's hard to raise awareness for this because it's kind of it's a difficult process. It's not the most interesting thing in the world. I mean, you like to think you've done it. Okay, I got my animal microchipped. I've done everything I can to make my animal safe. No, you have to complete the process. And that's just the part that's just not explained well to people.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you because I know it wasn't told to me, who does this every day. When I got my last dog, Carly, she was microchipped, and I thought where I got her at the shelter that I got her at, she was microchipped. Great, 24 pet watch, great. And I went in and I put my stuff in there, but I didn't pay any attention to the fact that it was only for a year. And so it was right after the year was up, but I didn't get anything, or if I did, it might have ended up in the junk mail pile, but I didn't remember getting anything about it, and I just scan them as a matter of course. I just check them every once in a while, and I checked hers, and I called up, and I said I wanted to see what they would do. I told them what I was doing, and I said, what would you do if I called and said Carly was missing? And they look, and they said, this chip is expired. I said, expired? What does that mean? I never heard that before. And he said, well, all the information's here, but it hasn't been paid for this year, so it's considered expired. And I said, okay, so what happens if Carly was lost? What would happen? Well, we'd probably email you. I said, you have all my information, but you'd only email me? I was just really confused and pretty upset about that because they have the information, but because I didn't pay, so that's when I paid the $79 for life. I'm like, I'm not taking any chances,
I can see why you would have done that. I know that at one time I was pretty sure that the people answering, and I'm not saying this now, I think this was maybe a few years ago, but for some companies, the people answering the phone were getting a commission if they sold something. And I still tell people when they call to register the microchip to please just remember they don't want to pay an annual fee. They don't need insurance because some of them have an offer that if you pay the fee, if your dog is found, say out of state and needs transportation, they'll transport the dog back for you for free. Well, yeah, that would be a great service, but and I certainly wouldn't argue that doesn't happen. But is that the sort of thing you want to insure? I mean, it doesn't happen that often. Right. Everything would have to come together really well. So I'm wondering, with this gentleman that talked to you, if he was really telling you what would happen. Because in my experience, it's just pretty routine. You call up, here's the chip number. I mean, I'm doing this every day, and I have never once heard anybody say, well, this account is in arrears.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I just could not believe it when he used that word expired. I'm like, expired? What are you talking about? Yeah, I was absolutely shocked.
I think he wanted you to reach for your wallet, as would just be anybody's reaction in that case. Pretty underhanded, I would say.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just caution people to not, to not fall for that. Now, I understand they're thinking they want to just continue to make some money. It's the same way with these not microchip companies, but like software companies. You buy software, and then they want a licensing fee every year because they're thinking, well, you're continuing to use the product. We should be continuing to get money. It's just, not the way I'd like to see them conducting their business. I mean, they're providing a service, but they're also being paid for the service. So just go for the volume and not try to squeeze every penny from everybody.
Right. Because I think really that is one of the reasons people don't keep things updated or register, because they just don't want to pay, And like you said, the found.org is a good one, but if the person scanning that found pet doesn't know about pet microchip lookup.org, then there's a problem. So there's a lot of education involved. There's educating the owners, the people that are scanning. There's a lot to it to get everyone on the same page. Like you said, you just had one with 4. Now, if they just go by, oh, it's an Avid chip and call Avid, oh, no, it's not registered with us, and it's registered at all those other places. If they hadn't looked it up, like you said, they wouldn't have known that.
Well, one thing we do at the Microchip Hunters is, even if the chip isn't registered, we still sometimes are able to go back to the original company that put the chip in, and still get the animal home. For example, and this is just like a typical case, and this was out of Chicago. We do a lot of work with Chicago Animal Care and Control, and somebody found an Avid microchip animal, but the person hadn't filled in their information, like you were just saying, and it backtracked to a local rescue animal welfare league, pretty big, well known, and they were able to help because they researched the number and in their system and found the adoption information. So that's kind of a backdoor way that we're helping people. And of course, sometimes shelters will reach out to these organizations, but other times there's too many chances for failure. I mean, again, staff is everywhere. People are busy at their jobs. They may not have time to do research and call a rescue, and then the rescue may be busy. But we've developing working relationships with some of these rescues. Well, we've called them multiple times, like in the big cities, and now when they hear from us, they're like, oh, okay, they know what we want. We just want the name and address. We're not going to bother them with anything else. I'm also really happy sometimes when I'll talk to these rescues that put the microchip in about a dog or a cat, and they'll say, well, how's the animal? And then they tell me that if I can't find the owner, they will take the animal back from the shelter. And that's always great to hear, because some of these shelters, there might not be a good outcome for the animal.
Right.
Lots of cats, lots of dogs. So, and it's another thing that it's good for the shelter, and it's good for our relationship with the shelter, because then I will tell them, say, this rescue says they'll take that dog back if you can't find the owner, and we're not having any luck, and they're really happy when that happens.
Right. So, Marilyn, I'd like you to just give everybody the information about the microchip hunters and how they can reach you, because it would be great for you to get more shelters on board with this program because it's really important.
Well, we would love to hear from shelters, and you can see what we're doing at microchiphelp.com. And if you go to that website, you'll find there we have success stories. The kind of the happy payoff, because not every animal that we track down, we may track down the owner, but they may not be able to take the animal back. So we like to celebrate our happy stories. Anyway, that'll give you a good idea, if you just scan through those stories, how we work. We're extremely private. We're not putting anybody's information out in the public, even if it would be the only way to get an animal home, to publicize a person's name. We're not doing any of that. It's all kept completely private. And if you look on that page, microchiphelp.com, you're going to find a series of forms. There's a form for a shelter, if a shelter wants to submit a microchip. And I would think that would be a good way to find out whether or not you like our service, is you can just go there, fill out the form for an animal you have, and see how that works out for you. And there's also forms for the public and for veterinarians. And our email address is team@microchiphelp.com. So if anybody is interested in being a microchip hunter, or if they have questions about the service, that would be one way to find us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a microchip hunter when I can, because I'm doing it. I'm doing it here for my pet. So,
yes, you are, and you're a good one. Let me tell you.
Thank you. All right, Marilyn. Well, thanks so much for being with me today. It's time to say goodbye, but I wanted to thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Patty. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, okay, everybody. So until next time, remember that a lost pet can't tell anyone where it lives. So please be sure your pet is microchipped and wearing its ID tags, and that microchip is registered and up to date. I'm your host, Patty Giarrusso, and this has been Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Thanks for joining us today, and until next time, take care and keep your pets safe.